Colorado fans keep making excuses for Deion Sanders' poor coaching. And look, I'm not a Colorado hater. And I don't get how people can call me a Colorado hater when I'm one of the few people on this platform that actually put money on this team to win the Big 12 championship. I'm not a hater. I'm just a disappointed supporter because I expected more out of this team. This team has too much talent at wide receiver, and they brought in too much talent from the transfer portal to play the way they've had the first couple of weeks into this season. I expected this team to look vastly improved this year compared to what they were last year. And you can only bring in so many players from the transfer portal until you got to point the finger at the coaching for not being able to get the most out of these guys and being able to develop them to reach their full potential. Jordan Seaton was the #1 offensive tackle in last year's recruiting class. He shouldn't look as bad as what he did against Nebraska. That's on the coaching. When you have negative yards after the first quarter like you did against Nebraska, that's on coaching because you didn't look prepared in that game. And as much as I love Deion Sanders, I'm assessing Colorado based off what I see on the field. And what I see on the field is nothing to praise. People call you a Deion hater and a racist when you're not holding water for him. I'm not finna put no knee pads on and put no pom-poms on for a dude that right now doesn't look qualified to be coaching at a Power 4 level in college football. When you're coaching at this high of a level, you're not coaching in the SWAC anymore. You can't just beat teams because you can out-talent them. You can out-roster them. You have to be able to beat teams that have just as good as a roster as what you have and also have good coaching to go along with it. Pat Shurmur is not a good offensive coordinator. He's a downgrade from what you had last year and the dude in Sean Lewis who was calling the plays. The thing with Pat Shurmur is that everywhere he's been in the NFL where he's called plays, the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, he's gotten fired. Why would you think that a dude who's gotten fired at nearly every job that he's gotten in the NFL is going to be able to all of a sudden help this offense click? And I really believe that Deion Sanders is the dude who's running this offense. This offense doesn't have no creativity to it. It's predictable. You can't run the football because your offensive line can't open up holes in the run game and able to do so. And as talented as what your receivers are, when you don't send them in motion like that, and you're not able to get creative with your route concepts, you become a predictable football team. And what Colorado is predictable. Colorado State, I don't think they're going to lose to them. But I wouldn't be surprised if they are in another close game like they were against North Dakota State. Anytime there's a big point spread against Colorado, I'm betting against them. I'm not betting against them to lose, but I'm not going to bet against them to cover a point spread that's this large, being 9.5, 10 points, because they're not a good enough team right now to be able to blow out teams that they should blow out despite the talent advantage that they may have. The only thing that looks better about this year's iteration of Colorado is that their defense actually has the ability to get stops. Last year, you had to pray to the football gods that Colorado could get a stop defensively. And their defensive line, their pass rush, does have moments where they're consistently able to get after the quarterback. In the second half, they played really well against Nebraska. But overall, from a team standpoint, this isn't a team. This looks like a bunch of individuals that Deion Sanders just got from the transfer portal. And you can't say that Deion Sanders doesn't deserve to get criticized when this team still looks as bad as what it did last year. And he supposedly improved this team with guys that he handpicked on the offensive line. You see, I believe that Deion Sanders is in over his head and that he doesn't know what he's doing as a head coach because instead of coaching these guys, he thinks that the answer is we just need to go and get better players. How many better players can you get until you look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm not doing a good job of putting these dudes in situations to succeed? You see, being a head coach is like being a chess player. The better chess player you are, the better you are at positioning your pawns on the board to take the opposing player's pieces. You see, with Deion Sanders, his mindset is, if I just have a lot of queens and kings, I can automatically win the game. And that's not how it works at this level in college football. In the SWAC, you can do that. But in the Big 12, you can't. And I was coming into the season, for all you guys who are calling me a hater, with the assumption that Colorado was the most talented team in this conference, because I really don't believe there's a big gap between Colorado and the rest of the other teams in the Big 12. So I get a little bit upset when people come on here and they call me a hater and act like I'm just supposed to suck up the Deion and excuse piss poor performance like what we saw out of Nebraska. That's a disappointment. It's a disappointment to the people that are invested in this program emotionally, that spend their hard-earned cash on merchandise, put money in Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, and everybody else's pockets, go to the games, and they get the result that they got against a team that they annihilated last year. You know, if they lose to Colorado State, you're going to have no choice but to accept the truth about Deion Sanders. You can like Deion Sanders and be a fan, but you can criticize him at the same time. It doesn't make you a hater. It can make you disappointed. And that's where my criticism with Deion comes from. It doesn't come from hate. It comes from me being disappointed, because this team should be playing better than what they have the first couple of weeks into this season. And if you call me holding this team up to a higher standard a hater, then I don't know what to tell you. You just have your pom-poms and your knee pads on, and you're just guzzling up Deion. And that's cool if you want to do that. You feel me? No offense to you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to expect this team to at least look like an 8-9 win team. And based off how they looked against Nebraska and NDSU, they don't look like a team that's even going to win 6 games in my eyes right now. Until the offensive line plays better and we see more creativity from Pat Shurmur as a play caller, I'm going to continue to criticize this team because they're underperforming. They're not living up to expectations. Your excuse can't be, well, Nebraska's a better team. What's going to be your excuse if Deion Sanders goes 4-8 or worse this year? Oh, the teams Colorado just played are better? No, that's bullshit. Colorado has one of the best receiving corps in college football. All 4 of their wide receivers that are starting are going to be playing on Sundays next year. Shedeur Sanders is a first-round talent. I don't care about the character concerns. I think the character concerns are mildly overblown. And I got a homeboy that actually plays for Colorado. He's actually a walk-on. And he says that what they report about Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders mostly is untrue. But there are some criticisms that are pretty fair. And the coaching has to be better. You can't have bad clock management where you have less than 20 seconds on the clock to go until halftime and you wait until 10 seconds to call a timeout. That's on coaching. Everything isn't hate. Some things you can actually see that are factual if you watch these games. Y'all just wanted that Deion's black, and with him being the Black King, you get offended when people have criticism of him, when the criticism isn't rooted out of hate. Why is it that every Colorado fan is trying to make it seem like when you criticize Deion, you're trying to start a race war? I'm not trying to start a race war. What I'm trying to say is that Deion is not the perfect coach that a lot of y'all people perceive him to be. And he will admit that himself. He says it after nearly every press conference. I got to be better. Well, where are we going to start seeing Deion look better as a coach? Because I expect more out of this team than what we've seen these first couple of weeks. And if me holding this team to a high standard is me being a hater, then I really got nothing to say to you. Because this should be an 8-9 win team. If you're okay with this being a 4 or 5 win program again and Deion continue to get hated on by people in the media, then that's okay with me. But, you know, I kind of do get a little bit upset when I see Colorado perform the way they do against Nebraska and NDSU, and you got people coming at me saying, oh, you overhyped this team. You know, I get a little bit upset when I see people push false narratives about Deion Sanders, and I would love for him to prove them wrong, but so far he's proven them right with how Colorado has looked so far this season. And I hope that Deion Sanders can turn around because I do have some good money on them winning the Big 12 championship. So when I come on here and criticize Deion, it's not rooted out of hate. It's rooted out of disappointment because I expect more out of this team with the improvements that they made from the transfer portal. This should not be the same team that we saw last year because it makes me ask, what were you doing all this offseason? You knew that the offensive line was the biggest issue on last year's team, so why is it still the biggest issue on this year's team? You had all offseason to improve this offensive line, and yet it's still terrible. What is your offensive line coach doing? You know, what is Pat Shurmur doing with the schemes and the protections? Why is Dallin Hayden not getting more touches? You know, there are a lot of questions that I have about Colorado football that Deion seems to not have the answer for. And after every press conference, he always says, like, we knew the answer, we would have been figured it out. Well, I mean, like, that just shows you the concerns about Deion as a head coach. He doesn't really know what he's doing, because if we are asking you, how are you going to fix this? How are you going to fix that? And you continuously say, I don't have an answer, which is the same thing that you said last year. It shows that if you don't have an answer, you don't know what you're doing to fix it. So therefore, you're kind of incompetent as a head coach. Does it make sense? Because it makes perfect sense to me. If you knew the answer, you would have been fixed it. Well, find the damn answer, Deion. Figure it out. You're going to let your son continue to get crushed back there and be dog food to opposing defenses? Like, every defense, every team that plays Colorado, they want to knock Deion Sanders' helmet off his damn shoulder pads. You know that, right, Coach Prime? You know that with the more you talk and the more Deion Sanders talks, the more of a target you become? Yeah, every team treats you as their Super Bowl because they have so much disdain for you to the point where they want to embarrass you. And I really believe that your defense did play well in the second half, because if we saw that defense play the same way they did in the first half, Nebraska would have beat you by 70. So the defense does look improved, but the rest of the team doesn't. And it's a major disappointment for what could be. Imagine if Colorado had an average offensive line. They would be undefeated right now. They would be good enough to win the Big 12. I'm just saying, like, I expect more out of Colorado. I expect more out of the recruiting. This is Deion Sanders. He doesn't have to make visits everywhere to recruit. It's Deion Sanders. Most of the times when he ends up calling recruits' parents, their grandma, their auntie, their mom, they know who Deion Sanders is. A lot of these parents don't know who Kirby Smart is. A lot of these parents don't know who Ryan Day is. Deion Sanders is one of the most popular athletes in the history of sports. So the recruiting should be a lot better than what it is right now. Colorado has probably the worst recruiting class right now in the Big 12. That's unacceptable. You know, there are a lot of issues with Colorado football that people just want to sweep underneath the rug. And it's kind of the same issues that these same people that continue to say you're a Deion hater tell you about HBCUs. That's kind of a conversation for a different day, but you know, there's a lot of HBCUs that are not good. But you know, the people that graduated from these HBCUs like Bethune-Cookman and whatnot, they don't want you to call out the issues. They just want you to praise how good that HBCU is. And I don't want to make this a racial thing, but that's kind of what Colorado fans do when you try to give some constructive criticism based off how this team has played on the field. What is there not to be critical of based off what we've seen out of Colorado in the first 2 weeks? You know, there's nothing to do but criticize this team because the coaching doesn't look that good. These guys on the field don't look prepared in the majority of these games. There are missed assignments, missed blocking assignments on the offensive line, poor communication. These are not talent issues. These are coaching issues. Deion handpicked these players. So either he has poor player evaluation skills, or either he's just not a good coach. But you just can't make excuses. Oh, well, it's on the players. No, it's on Deion, because he brought these guys in. He handpicked these dudes. It's like NFL free agency to him. So if you're handpicking dudes, they should be better than what you had last year. I refuse to say that Jordan Seaton is as bad as what Colorado had at left tackle last year. I refuse. This dude could have went any other place in America. And when Deion Sanders was snapping on the offensive line, including him in the fourth quarter against Nebraska, I saw a look in his eyes that said, you know, maybe I made a mistake coming here. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Seaton transfers elsewhere and receives better coaching. I expect more out of Deion Sanders, and I expect more out of Colorado football moving forward throughout this year. There is no reason why they should have lost 28-10 to Nebraska. They are not that bad of a team. This is a really good team. But they're being held back to lackluster coaching. Being a good motivational speaker and one of the best for these dudes off the football field is admirable. And it's respectable. And I respect Deion for that. But at the same time, nobody cares about what you're doing for the community. Nobody cares about all of the revenue that you're bringing in for Colorado. All of that is great, but none of that is going to last if Colorado continues to lose in the fashion that they did to Nebraska. Eventually, people are going to stop tuning in to watch a poor product. Nobody wants to continue to support a team that is constantly garbage every single week and looks unprepared and underperforms. You know, it's just disappointing, and it's a slap in the face to the people like me that are actually rooting for Deion Sanders to succeed, that he continues to do the same thing week in and week out and get the same results.